Hey everybody, it's me, Finn. Welcome to another episode of my show, Finn's Thoughts. On today's episode, I'm actually going to talk about two of my favorite historic epic films, that being 13th Warrior and Kingdom of Heaven. And I'm just going to kind of compare and contrast those two because I've noticed in the last at least year or so that I've noticed a lot of YouTube videos about both of them and a lot of different press about both of them that there's a changing in the sense of the perception of one film and a persistent view of the other. The two films are actually very similar stories. For those who have never seen either one of these films, 13th Warrior is actually an Antonio Banderas 1999 film in which he plays an Arab courtesan and poet from Saudi Arabia, of course, from the court of Saudi Arabia. And he is a Muslim, and he ends up having an affair with a married woman, and in order to do penance, he's exiled. Well, he's sent off as an ambassador for the king of his lands to a group of Germanic men who are traveling those areas. And he ends up going with them to another Germanic king who has sought out their help, and ends up becoming, thus the title, the 13th Warrior, to help fight this enemy that this king is facing. And the Kingdom of Heaven, the second film, is an Orlando Bloom film from 2005, in which he plays Belial, a bastard son of a French nobleman and crusader who joins the Second Crusade to defend Jerusalem from Salah ad-Din's forces. The two films, their similarities are in the sense of, they're both telling stories about Arabic and Muslim culture and Western medieval European cultures coming into contact with each other. Whereas, with Kingdom of Heaven, you have a man from Christendom going to Arabic and Muslim lands in order to fulfill this journey and have this quest that he goes on. In 13th Warrior, you have a Muslim man coming from his lands and going into Western Europe. 13th Warrior actually is based on a Michael Crichton novel called The Eaters of the Dead. That novel was actually written by Crichton after he had an argument with a friend of his over Beowulf and the story of Beowulf and whether or not it could actually be told in an exciting and adventurous way. Crichton wrote the book in order to show that yes, Beowulf could be told in a way that was exciting, action-packed, and thrilling. The story itself is modeled in such a way to where the Arabic man that you're following, who is actually based on an actual historic figure who did travel to Europe during the 10th century, he comes into contact with these Vikings, these Norsemen, and goes on this journey. Essentially, he joins Beowulf's party to go fight Grendel. Crichton does it in such a way to where he's using real history, and you basically have this group of Vikings and higher civilized Europeans fighting a tribe, a hunter-gatherer tribe of almost cave-dwelling Europeans. It's that transition from Stone Age civilization to a more modern and to at least medieval civilization, and that conflict. He's taken Beowulf and turned it into that, and then shown it to you, as I said, through the eyes of this Arabic traveler. Kingdom of Heaven is written and directed solely from a much different perspective, and its beginning, its very impetus in and of itself is almost a political statement. Ridley Scott is basically trying to show that Arab and Western relations have been tense and have been an issue ever since the Crusades. Now, that is true. That's not what's in dispute with his film and what has come into dispute with his film in the last few years. What's in dispute is the huge amounts of historical inaccuracies that he has placed in the film, specifically done in order to make the Western Europeans and the European Crusaders look like complete tools and really just genuinely evil people. So one story, its motivating factor is really kind of totally different from the other. And I think that is part of what has led to some of the change in perception of both of those stories in modern critical analysis. Both of these films are actually very enjoyable historic epics. The problem me personally, I like both of them. I find something to like in both of them. 13th Warrior of itself is a great action film. There are some amazing fights in it, some great battle and fight scene choreography, both in the middle kind of battle that takes place where the cave people, the Eaters of the Dead, actually end up raiding the Viking village, and then later during the second raid, during the finale, when Beowulf himself is wounded and has to fight the head tribesman, who is the Grendel character of the story. Both of those scenes are great scenes and very well done, and it's cinematically very well shot. Antonio Banderas, while it is weird, that a Hispanic man is playing an Arab in this film, especially given that this movie had Omar Sharif in it. It had an actual Egyptian person, someone who is from the area actually in the film. And yet, the Hispanic guy's playing the main Arab character. But he does a fantastic job in it. He really does. It's one of his better movies. He portrays the character that he is playing very well, is strongly convincing in most of the scenes that he's in. You really, you grow to identify and love his character as he goes through the journey and begins to kind of shed some of his old thinking on things and embrace new ways and new ideas. Kingdom of Heaven is enjoyable just in more of a sense of granted, there are some amazing fight scenes in that one, don't get me wrong, and there are some amazing battle moments in that one. The final push by Salah ad-Din's forces into the kingdom and city of Jerusalem is possibly one of the greatest giant, just epic, grand scale war fight scenes of all time. Kingdom of Heaven's strength comes mainly from its individual performances. Not necessarily Orlando Bloom. He kind of phones it in a little bit in this film. He's kind of essentially playing the same character that he played in Pirates of the Caribbean, just with a little more, torture. Because of, he has a deceased wife in the film. You have Jeremy Irons doing a stellar performance in that. Eva Green is fantastic in it. Ed Norton's performance, amazing. You don't even realize that that's him. I had to look it up. I actually had to IMDb it and find out who that was playing King Baldwin IV in that film. Now granted, he's basically just a voice in that movie because he's doing the entire performance behind an iron mask. But he still is, just even with his voice and the inflections that he uses, he's able to emote so much and give you such a great performance in that film. The issue with each of these films, or at least with one of these films, particularly Kingdom of Heaven, comes from their motivating factors, the impetus behind telling both of these stories. Of course, as I stated before, 13th Warrior is based on the book Eaters of the Dead, which was written in order to try to make Beowulf a more interesting tale and give it a little bit more for you as a reader or as a viewer to latch onto. Whereas Kingdom of Heaven, its entire impetus is a socio-political statement. It is trying to make a statement about Arabic and European or Western European/American relations in this day and age via the Second Crusades. With that being the case with Kingdom of Heaven, it gets bogged down too much in that and too much in trying to portray Western Europeans of that time as horrible, backward people that lived terrible lives and were atrocious to their Arab neighbors and cousins. And obviously, historians have stated that is just not the case. So, where 13th Warrior was just trying to tell a fun, enjoyable story, Kingdom of Heaven had a political statement to make. And you see the end result that, one, provides you with just a great experience and a good action film that tells you a tale about connectivity and how we are all in the same neighborhood, that being Earth, versus, something that is very preachy and kind of heavy-handed in what it's trying to do. But that is my view on both of those films. Again, I strongly recommend that you go out there and check them both out. They are great, both very enjoyable historic epics. Check with us next time. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and check out all of our other videos. Y'all have a great day.